there, dog lovers. Welcome to the R Plus Canine podcast. My name is Anna, and I'm a trainer at R Plus Canine and Medical Mutts. Today, we are going to discuss the difference between management and training and how the two should always overlap. Let's define these terms before we jump in. Management focuses on controlling the dog's environment and tries to prevent the practice of unwanted behaviors, while training focuses on teaching the dog specific desired behaviors through the use of positive reinforcement techniques in our case. It's important that we use both of these things when we start to work on a new behavior and try to leave an old behavior behind. So, if your dog has already developed jumping as a way of greeting people and gaining attention, we will need management in place first before we can start thinking about training at all. Really, management is there to provide a foundation for your training. And then training can take place, and that is the thing that will help your dog learn the behaviors you do desire. And it will also allow us to, over time, decrease, or in some cases, even eliminate the need for constant management. So, since we chose the example of jumping up, this is a behavior that we often actually teach to our dogs and reinforce without even knowing. If you have gotten your dog as a puppy, it is likely that they have jumped up on you at some point or another. And because they were so cute, they were just this little ball of fluffy joy, you couldn't say no to them. You loved on them, you gave them attention, maybe you jumped up and played with them. And your dog found this highly reinforcing. So they have learned that this behavior will gain them attention and love, and it's a fun way to engage you. Of course, jumping up as a behavior is not intended to cause harm. However, those of us who have dogs really above 20, 30 pounds, when they grow up to their full size, jumping up can get more frustrating and even dangerous with more frail people around us. So, this very cute behavior that you had for your puppy, you may have not even been the one who taught it. It may have been strangers that you run into during your walk or guests that have come to your home. However, your dog will rather be confused when you suddenly just no longer engage with them when they jump up. They will not have a concept that they have doubled in size or more than doubled in size. They will just see that this behavior no longer works. In some cases, your dog may not give up easily, and in those cases, management becomes increasingly important. So, let's talk a little bit more about management before we start talking about training. If you have a dog that is an adult or adolescent who is definitely jumping up on people for greeting and or attention. Now, I do want to preface what I'm going to say with the caveat that some dogs do jump on people out of anxiety and a couple of other motives. If that is the case for your dog, I do encourage you to speak with a trainer and or a behavior specialist, as what we are going to discuss after this point is certainly not meant for those type of dogs. It is meant for dogs that jump up on people for attention and or as an inappropriate greeting, overexcited behavior. So, you have a dog that jumps up on people who enter your home, or if anybody comes close to you during a dog walk and they want to pet your dog, you can count on them standing on their two back feet and expressing all of their big emotions and love towards that new person who may or may not want to be indulged in that. Let's talk really briefly about the importance in you staying consistent with your dog's management techniques as well as training. Dogs are masters of patterns, so when it comes to management, if you're not doing it really 10 out of 10 times, or at least 9 out of 10 times, your dog will not really pick up on anything. The dog is still intermittently practicing the wrong behavior and getting reinforced by other people loving on them, or maybe yourself. And actually, intermittent reinforcement is pretty highly reinforcing for any dog. So I would encourage you to really commit that you will apply some form of management each and every time your dog is tempted to jump on another person and or yourself. This leads me to another very important point. We do have to think about how can we control our environment. Controlling your environment or environmental control will be much easier in your home because you normally know when people will come over, when guests may arrive, and you can also kind of select the people who interact with you and your dog. They may be more understanding towards your training efforts. On the other hand, when you're walking your dog or out and about, it is more likely that you will have much less control over your overall environment. However, in both cases, you should think of all of the factors you can control, right? When people come over, it's likely that your trainer may have suggested a couple different methods. Let's say a couple of off top of my head. Maybe your trainer has suggested to put your dog on a leash and keep them by your side and make sure that the guests that come over to your home just ignore your dog so they do not add to their excitement. Another trainer may have suggested to put your dog in their crate or yet again keep them on a leash and give them a chew or a Kong so that your dog has something to work on and focus on while people come and go and enter your home. This is especially important when excitement is at its highest, which is likely when all the people enter your home and there are the initial highs and hugs and whatnots, depending on how you greet your friends and family. Other management techniques may also be proactive even more. Maybe your trainer has also suggested to exercise your dog beforehand because a dog that has its needs met and feels satiated both from an exercise and a mental stimulation perspective is more likely to be a good companion and a good partner in training during these situations. In any of those cases, you are all in your home and have your methods in place and you will have to follow through them. But you can learn to apply some of these methods on a walk. You will just have to tweak them. Maybe on a walk you don't have a Kong, but maybe you can toss treats on the ground to keep your dog focused on the food and not the person and prevent them from dancing on their two back feet. I would also say that learning to advocate for your dog is so very important. I will admit, personally, I have not been the best advocate for my dogs. I've been very lucky in the sense that I own dogs that were incredibly friendly towards everyone. They were never really fearful. So I was never put in the situation where I was afraid that my dog could not handle it. However, I still think I would have done better by them if I would have maybe advocated more for them. So all of that is to say that I encourage you to learn to advocate for your dog. We know at this point that if you don't advocate for your dog and you leave them to their own devices, they are likely to jump on another person. And that is exactly what we are trying to prevent. So make sure you also feel comfortable advocating for your dog, and if that makes it easier for you, you can have a little script in your head. Maybe somebody approaches you on a walk. Maybe you immediately start tossing treats on the ground or have an open bar, meaning have a handful of treats that they're munching on. And as you talk to the person, you reinforce your dog by your side or on the ground by your side. And you tell the person, oh yeah, he or she is so very friendly and I would love for them to say hi to you. But unfortunately, they are just too excited and we are working on this exact thing on training. But it's very helpful if you stand right there and we could just work off of you. This way, you don't only act politely, but you also involve the person in your training, so they still get to be a small part of your journey, and that can make them feel involved and satiated to a point about wanting to say hi to your dog. So Another point I would like to make here is setting boundaries is just as important, right? So, setting boundaries for your dog, really figuring out for yourself or with your housemates, family, and whoever the dog and you may be living with, what is okay and what is not okay for your dog. So maybe you're okay with your dog cuddling with you on the couch, but you're not okay with any form of jumping. Those boundaries, if they're clearly defined, it really becomes a criteria. And if those boundaries are nice and clean and consistent, your dog will have a much easier time picking up on those boundaries. So, all this talk about management is great, and you could see why management is crucial. But let's talk a little bit more about training. So, with the management in place, now you can start looking for the right moment for your training. Most likely, the first time your dog sees another person is their peak of their excitement. That is not where we would recommend the start point of your training because they're very unlikely to be successful. However, if you're able to use management in the beginning of the interaction until your dog calms down a little bit, now you can start engaging their brain and working on desirable behaviors. If your dog, for example, has a really strong sit, you may be able to say, Fluffy, sit, as soon as a person approaches. And because sit is a behavior that is incompatible with jumping and vice versa, that behavior will now replace the jumping over time and practice. Or you could always have an open bar situation where you just feed your dog several treats, and maybe the person who approaches just pets them once or twice and then moves on. Until again, over time, you can increase your criteria and remove the open bar and or the hand lure. There are many, many methods that you can use initially to ease your dog into understanding what is your new expectations of them or what are your new expectations of them. I also would like you to think about yourself in this picture because oftentimes we either blame ourselves only or our dogs only. And I would say neither of them is very helpful. Let's be honest, when you have a social interaction, it's likely that you're unable to focus solely on your dog and their training needs, and you're not going to have your trainer hat on the full time, especially if it's a family gathering or friends coming over, and the interaction lasts for several hours. Instead of putting yourself in that impossible situation, you will use management techniques and you will use the management techniques until you see a small hole in the interaction and you think of training and you think, oh wow, this would be the perfect scenario where I could work on my dog not jumping up on people. You will take that couple minutes, really, it normally shouldn't start with more than 2 or 3 minutes. Make sure your dog has fun and success, and then stop, and you will go back to management. The point is that over time, the dog gets better with the training, and the duration of the time that management covers gets smaller and smaller. But I do want to make sure, again, that you are realistic about your expectations with both your dog and yourself. If you have a dog who used to jump or maybe still jumps and you're on the journey of working through it, share with us in the comments what was your favorite technique you used to work through this jumping thing, or the technique maybe you like the least because it didn't seem to work for you and your dog. Remember, all of us are unique and have unique needs and limitations, and the same training technique may not work as well for one team as it does for the other. Remember to be patient with both yourself and your dog, and happy training!